In brackets, you're not just opening files, you're opening folders, which you can think of as projects. This works out nicely because usually you're working on files that are related to each other and not just one huge file. In a past programming life, I used to work in single file programs that were thousands of lines long, but most code today doesn't work that way, thankfully. The most obvious way to open either a file or folder is to go to the File menu like you would in any other application. I'm not going to even discuss this menu because you can figure out how that works. You might just want to note that the keyboard shortcuts are listed by the different options in case you want to memorize any of them. They're mostly similar to what you would use in other programs that modify files of any type. I almost never use the menu to open my projects, however. Instead, I use the project button right here to find my projects. The reason is because once I open a new project, which I'll do right now, it becomes part of a list and I can switch between projects I'm working on very easily. I can go back to the Getting Started project quickly by clicking on the button and choosing it from the list. Another way to open projects is to just drag a folder into the editor. If I do that, you can see that this project is now my open project. And again, I can easily switch between the projects just by clicking on the button. Even better than clicking on the button and switching is to learn the keyboard shortcut, Ctrl+Alt+R. When I hit that, it brings up a project picker and I can use the arrow keys to switch to a new project or open a new one. So I'm able to switch quickly between projects, keeping my hands on the keyboard. This list will grow over time, but you can prune it of old projects by clicking on the X that shows up when you hover over the name. One great thing about brackets is how it remembers the state of your projects. I can go into one project and have some files open and even highlight some code. Then I can go into another project and look around. If I switch between the projects, it remembers what files were open and it even remembers where my cursor was and if code was selected. This gives you the freedom to switch between projects freely without worrying about losing your place. I find this very handy when I want to reference something in a different project. Just as you can drag folders into brackets, you can also drag files. They'll open up and become part of the active project. You can also set up your system to open certain file types automatically with brackets. For example, HTML files are often set up to open in your default browser. I like them to open up in brackets. I'll show first how to change that on a Windows machine and then next on a Mac. In Windows, and I'm using Windows 7, this may be different on Windows 8, I can right-click and choose Open With. I see brackets as an option, but picking it will only mean that it opens in brackets this one time. To change the default, I need to go to the bottom and pick Choose Default Program. This will allow me to pick brackets. I also need to make sure this is checked. Notice once I do that, all HTML files have the brackets icon telling me if I double-click on it, it will open in brackets. On a Mac, I can do something similar. If I right-click or control-click on an HTML file, I can choose to open it with brackets. The difference on the Mac is that it will continue to open this specific file in brackets. However, it still won't open all HTML files that way. To make it open all files of this type in brackets, I need to go to Get Info. I can choose the program to open with, and then I can click on Change All to make the change global. So you can open your files and projects any way you want in brackets. With the menu, with keyboard shortcuts, from the Project Switcher button, with dragging and dropping, or by opening files from the Explorer or Finder, whatever is easiest for you. In the next lesson, I'll be talking about how brackets lets you manage your files.